Miigwech, Anin, everybody. I want to acknowledge Canada as Indigenous land from coast to coast that we share with everybody who's come afterwards. I also want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Anishinaabe-kwe from Beausoleil First Nation, and I'm Wolf Clan, which means I'm into strategy and protecting my family. And my name, the first part, Wanda, means wanderer, and the last part, Nanibush, comes from Nanibojo, which is our trickster. So I'm a wandering trickster, so you can choose to trust me or not. What I'm going to do, like a good trickster, I'm going to solve all of our problems in 7 minutes. Well, 6 minutes and 12 seconds. What we need is to have a clue, or to clue into children, land, language, water, and women. For me, this is what Idle No More movement of land defenders and water protectors is all about. What so many of us continue to work on in a variety of ways, from working in our territories to curating exhibitions or to making art. Children, I'm going to start with children, and that includes youth. Children are the center of the Anishinaabe community. We act and think in ways that protect them. See, I normally don't read, but I've got 7 minutes, so I thought I should. But I hate reading, I just like talking. We act and think in ways that protect them for many generations by protecting the world they will inherit. We also nurture their self-worth, strength, curiosity, and independence. They are assisted in finding their gifts, and they're obligated to find a path to sharing and using those gifts. Children are wise, like elders, because they are closest to spirit. What I think of spirit is it's the fundamental creative force of the universe. They have less blocks to their imagination. We are born with thought, emotion, and body knowledge, and together their health and proper use feeds our spirit, and in turn the spirit feeds them back. This country has robbed us of our children for over 150 years. Historically through the Indian residential school system, something my mother survived, and today through the child welfare system, something I survived. There are more kids in care today than when residential schools were mandatorily attended at their height. I can tell you for a fact that racism, a lack of understanding the impact of residential schools, and what I call the post-colonial trauma stress disorder, our version of PTSD, the utter lack of preventative services, addiction treatment, or services to help parents be better parents. These things are at the root of this massive removal of children from our homes. I was pulled from my mother's loving but traumatized embrace by police when I was 5. I was lucky because she went to court and fought to make sure I wasn't adopted out to a white family. Technically, I am actually part of the 60s scoop, which started in the 60s and ended in 1985. After many First Nations survivors of residential schools fought to make sure more generations weren't removed from our communities, there was a law passed in 1985 that meant First Nations children, if removed, had first to go to a First Nations family. I moved back to my reserve by request in 1985. I was lucky because I had grown up with my family, they were in care with me, and my culture and my connection to my land. But I still got the PTSD. The main reason many kids are removed is poverty. That poverty has been implemented as part of the colonial project of Canada. It has everything to do with the wealth our land has given to Canadians. The price of Canada's wealth has been the expense of our land, bodies, and potential. 2 things to learn and implement from this are to see the payments that go to First Nations, not as handouts, but as restitution for land theft and lost income, and to stop using them as a political weapon. When First Nation communities assert their right to govern themselves, these payments that cover the fundamental and basic needs of a community are held back until the community complies with government legislation. We fought for control over our children so that we would not do a bad job with poor Poor resources. So what we need is First Nations solutions to these problems, and for part of the justice aspect of reconciliation is about properly resourcing education, child welfare, which means buildings, curriculum, all these things coming from an Indigenous perspective, so that the one thing that has been tried for, assimilation, or what we call gradual genocide. So in order to actually end that and for the apology to have real teeth, then these kinds of solutions have to come within our own culture so that we can raise our children as Anishinaabe in their own land. And currently we're standing on Anishinaabe land. And land is central to our identities and to the wealth and economic and political sovereignty of any nation. So returning land to our communities means that the land currently held in trust becomes part of our, under our control. Getting rid of the Indian Act does not have to mean assimilation. It can be self-determination if it's Indigenous-led, and we take Indigenous title to the land and the treaty process seriously. We also have Section 35 of the 82 Constitution, which recognizes and affirms existing treaty and Aboriginal rights. This should not be decided by bureaucrats, but in a nation-to-nation equal discussion sitting across from each other at the table, what those rights are and what they mean. We keep people poor so they can't negotiate as equals because they need too much. Our lands, in being returned, actually give us a basis for wealth creation, much like Canada has had. I include water with land. Water is the land's sustenance. Both need each other to survive, and we need them to survive. All right. I'm stopping, I promise. Both need each other to survive, and we need them to survive. Women in my culture are the protectors of the water, and we stand up everywhere around the world so our children may drink her in the future. That's it.